Greetings everyone, I am RSV. Let's try to answer the question, what happened between the start of NGS and base game? I have several theories about what may have transpired during this period, though we do not know a lot about this period, but we can make some assumptions if certain points are true for the NGS universe. 1. The Guardian and the Meteon are the same person. This fact would force the story to follow the Oracle fleet. So, during the period between the start of NGS and the end of base game, if the Guardian and the Meteon are the same person, then it forces the Oracle fleet to be the fleet that colonized Halpha. As we know, the Oracle fleet was a bunch of colony ships, which means at the end of base game, which I'll now refer to as 0 after TPD, and NGS's start date as 1000 ATPD, the Oracle fleet's colony ships colonized several planets, one of them being Halpha. Now, you'll notice something significant. You'd think there'd be communications between the different colonies. However, I believe the fact that there isn't communication between the different colonies suggests that a major event happened between the forming of Halpha and present day. I'm going to assume that Halpha was colonized around 500 ATPD. The reason for that is we know that Retum is at least 200 years old, and I think that gives us a bit of wiggle room. But I'd also say that that is the earliest that Halpha could have been colonized. Any earlier than that, and I think the timeline wouldn't have made a lot of sense. I think it's fair to say that Halpha has not been colonized for more than 500 years at the most. But somewhere between this point and 1000, it is very likely that a calamity had befallen the Oracle fleet, or had befallen Halpha and blocked Halpha off from the rest of the universe. I'll let you decide which one of those is more likely. We also know that dolls showed up in Retum about 800 ATPD, which means that the Kvaris freeze-over happened around that time period as well, as that's when Darkfalls would have surfaced. But what is this calamity that occurred to the Oracle fleet? Well, simply put, it could just be the return of Darkfalls. I've seen the comment come around a couple of times that it takes 1000 years for Darkfalls to reoccur. This is blatantly untrue in Pso2's story, even without the Profound Darkness around. Because, just a note, Matoi fell twice and the Profound Darkness had not formed yet. And if we failed to save Matoi, we fell, and again, the Profound Darkness was not around, at least currently. The next theory I'm going to throw at you is that we are in a simulation, and the simulation happens 1000 years from the end of base game. So instead of being at 1000 ATPD, we're at like 2 to 10 ATPD. In this case, it's likely that the Guardian is testing things, and Manon is an administrator of sorts, and possibly also just Matoi. Manon, Matoi, their names are similar enough that I would see the connection there, which would explain why Manon has some memories from her past while you do not. What it doesn't explain is why. It is possible that a simulation was made because of the events that happened in episode 4, where Mother connects a game to the Pso2 universe, or at least to the Pso2 cluster. Wherever Pso2 takes place in the universe, it is actually fairly unclear if the Earth in that dimension is in a different dimension at all. The main reason for this is Omega affects Earth as well, and Earth is worried about the black hole that will swallow it up. It is possible that this is done to deepen relations with Earthlings. Either that, or it's done to help another universe somewhere. Either that, or Arx does it to help a civilization that is in trouble elsewhere. Maybe another fleet. Just because it's a simulation to the player, or us, doesn't mean that it's actually unreal in the Pso2 universe. Because of base game's episode 4, we do know that it is possible that a simulation within Pso2, or a game, is connecting to a different universe or different area. But then the question ends up being, where is Halpha? Why are they doing this? Or has a new threat resurfaced itself, and instead of just deploying out into the field willy-nilly, they have to go under rigid training simulations? Or maybe Halpha is a training simulation that is used to teach young Arcs, and the Guardian has to review it. There are so many theories that can be thrown into this one. But moving on to the last one, and possibly the more complicated one. This one assumes because the arc symbols on the towers are different, but the arc symbols on the storage machines are the same, that the Guardian is the same person as the Meteon, but at some point the Guardian got onto a different Arc's fleet. Now, I've talked about this in my comments before. The Darkfalls that were threatening Oracle fleet weren't the only Darkfalls in the universe. Hell, the Profound Darkness that we beat likely wasn't the only Profound Darkness that was endangering the universe. So my theory is that another region that ended up establishing Halpha ended up in trouble, and we were transferred to that fleet. And well, with our experience fighting Darkfalls, there is ample reason to believe that we would be transferred to another fleet. If another fleet requested help, I believe that the Guardian would be one of the first people on call after the end of base game. After all, the Guardian was basically one of the ambassadors to the Earth people from Arcs to start with. The Guardian is very highly ranked and has a lot of sway within the Arcs. But then something happened. The Guardian had to be thrown into cryosleep, likely to F Factor, and then at some point, the Guardian got thrown down to Halfa for some reason, and it's likely that Halfa was a colony of this other fleet, and the reason why the storage devices are there was to honor Oracle fleet. Maybe the Guardian helped establish Halfa in the first place, but then got sealed into the cryo chamber to get rid of F Factor, but it's ultimately hard to say. But that would also explains why Dark Falls is active in that region, because simply put, Dark Falls was never put down in that region. But I've been RSV. What theory do you subscribe to? And I will see you next time.